All right. All right, good evening. Just before I call the meeting to order, I understand Mr. Alan Graham is here and is a delegation under D1 and wanted it moved to January 29th. Is Mr. Graham here? Just let me, I don't know. Is that, did you want to move to the 29th, your delegation? Okay, so I'll do that as part of the agenda. Okay, great, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to bring the regular evening council meeting of Township of Langley to order. And the first item is adoption and receipt of the agenda items, with D1 being removed and moved, and it'll come back on the 29th. So with that, ask for motion. Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Fox. Show of hands, all those in favor. Opposed, carried. Next motion is adoption of the minutes of the regular evening council meeting on December 11th and the public hearing meeting of December 11th. Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Arneson. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. And there are no presentations, and now there are no delegations. So we move on to bylaws for first and second reading. F1 is this rezoning and community plan amendment application number 100157. Development permit application numbers 100823 and 100868. Bylaw 5332 and Bylaw 5333. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Long and seconder. Councillor Fox. Any discussion on F1? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh, sorry. Cancel it. A late button there. Councillor Richter.
Yes, I would like to inquire if there's any provisions to ensure that there's below market or affordable housing, any component in this development for seniors.
Mr. Seffi.
Your Worship, the application consists of adult-oriented seniors care and apartment housing, but not below-market housing.
So is it all market housing?
Rental,
Yeah.
built, purpose-built rental, seniors care, as well as apartments, regular strata apartments.
Okay. And is there any reason why we can't require there to be a percentage of below market for affordable housing for seniors in this complex?
Your Worship, the proponents have been working on this application for a number of years, and I believe that is something that would potentially have to go back to square one and have the applicants consider that, but that's certainly something that Council could require.
Okay. And this is the first of what will be 4 20-story towers. Will the other 3 20-story towers also be seniors housing?
The zoning bylaw that's in front of Council that is being considered for first and second reading does allow for that. However, the applicant has not proposed anything at this point for the future phases.
Okay. I'd like to make an amendment to add a condition that 20% of the units be affordable housing for seniors.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arneson seconds the amendment. Discussion. Councillor Qualley.
Why 20%, perhaps, to the mover? I don't understand where this is coming from. It seems to just come out of nowhere, and we've never had any sort of discussions about where this should be or how we get there or what this should look like. So why 20%? Why not 100? Why not 8%?
Well, I thought 20% is a good place to start.
Councillor Arneson's next. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I can't really speak to the exact number, but I just would generically say that this application is asking for a number of variances. And from the township's position, I think that given the fact that we have what I'll call a dearth of affordable senior housing options in our community, that we might look to see if the developer would consider any percentage of affordable housing for seniors. Because I also note, it seemed to me that when I read what the description of is seniors housing in our own bylaw, this doesn't even meet that description. So because it talked about lack of condominiums, it talked about rental units and not purchasing. So I do see that this probably more closely matches market models to ensure that they have what they consider to be their economic viability. But I think we need to look at our social viability in our community as we grow out. And it is an opportunity to consider whether or not, and I believe whether we should have some affordable component in this, which would be an ideal place to situate those individuals.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Well, Your Worship, I support taking this to public hearing. I think there could be some questions put to the proponent at that time as to how they may want to address the concern that some councillors have. But at this stage, to go back to the drawing board, as was mentioned by Mr. Saifi, before we've even heard from the public, I think is premature. We certainly like to have affordable housing anywhere that's available. That's absolutely a great goal to be going for, but we're not the proponents of this. So I'd prefer to see this go to the public hearing, and we could put that question to the proponent at that time. So I wouldn't be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Well, this particular Jericho sub-neighborhood has been on the drawing boards for a minimum of 10 years. I would think when Mr. Matrunin originally brought the idea, the concept forward, I think waiting 10 years and then in one meeting we would, if we put a 20% expectation on the, certainly on Building A, we'd kill it. And wait another 10 years for something else to come. I agree that I would like to see some market housing. I think there are options in the overall bigger picture of the development that is proposed, the complete development, that within the options and buildings yet to come forward, that the proponent could put some market housing in, and or below market housing, and could meet or exceed what our expectations are. But to put a definitive number of 20%, I think would just kill this project, and we would sit around with this land sitting there. I realize that market housing and below market housing is really important for seniors, but we do need seniors housing of all kinds. And I think this is a progressive step in the right direction. We've waited a long time for this particular piece of property to develop, and I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that as this evolves, note to development, Care Pacific, Maple Gardens, please include some market housing, below market housing, as you evolve the 7 different buildings that will be in 3 phases in this particular project. But right now, let's go to public hearing and on this Building A, on the overall concept, but in particular Building A.
Thank you. Councillor Sparrow.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Fox's comments. I think us sitting here tonight arbitrarily coming up with a percentage is not the most prudent way to go about this process. So I think I'd like to send this to public hearing and hear what the public has to say. And I do think it can be a conversation moving forward as an overall goal of looking at more affordable housing and market housing for seniors, but just arbitrarily picking a number, as Councillor Qualley said, 20%, 8%, 10, 50. It's I think not the right way to go about it. So I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions out separate from the conversation that the last 2 councillors have discussed. In the document...
On the amendment?
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
on the amendment.
We'll get back to the motion. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor Richter?
Well, this whole Jericho subdivision or subdevelopment area was pitched to council 10 years ago by an individual who was passionate about seniors care, passionate about ensuring that there were affordable options for seniors. Yes, it's taken quite a while for this project to finally get in front of council, but in the 10 years that has passed, how many more homeless people are on our streets? And how many more of those homeless people are seniors? I think it's very short-sighted of us to say, we'll send it to public hearing and see what happens. I think what we should be doing is stating a mandate now, which is when we're going to put dedicated seniors housing in, we need to ensure that a part of that seniors housing will support those seniors in need at below market value. So I think we should be saying 20%. And if the developer doesn't like the 20%, then the developer is welcome to come back and tell us why they don't like the 20%.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley.
I think the consideration of a percentage of below market housing definitely has merit, and I'd be happy to hear from the public about that. But this isn't just seniors housing. This is 2 levels of advanced seniors care. And so there's full care built into this, and it's sort of an age-in-place process where somebody could live on the 10th floor, and once they're no longer able to care for themselves, move down to the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th floor where they can receive care. So I think this project has been in the works for a number of years, and I think if we were to now just arbitrarily throw a number out of 20%, perhaps that could be accommodated, but perhaps the developer would have to give up their 2 levels of seniors care. So this isn't just seniors housing, this is seniors care combined with seniors housing that offers something that we don't have in this municipality now. So I'm going to support sending it to public hearing because I'd like to hear from the community, but I also think we need to have the conversation about the bigger picture of this particular piece of infrastructure, that it isn't just market housing. There's 2 complete stories of care built into this as well that is something that we also need in this community. And if we decide right now to change their entire business model because we decide we know better than everybody else and it should be 20%, then we could potentially be putting all of that at risk. So I'm not prepared to make that decision today.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll just add a few comments. I totally agree that we need to have affordable housing throughout the region. And I know that Township of Langley, I'm pretty excited there's a project going forward in Willoughby where there's a group that's working very hard to bring affordable housing to the community. And it's just not that easy, just to wave a magic wand to say we have affordable housing. It takes a lot of work, a lot of funding has to come through. I know this particular group got funding from BC Housing, looking at ways to meet the criteria. There's ways that they can have DCCs waived through Metro Vancouver by meeting certain criteria. It's not a simple thing just to say, well, we're now going to have 20% market or affordable housing, because it's very, very complex. And one of the side effects of having affordable housing, and there's nothing wrong with this, but by decreasing the cost of one part of it, has the effect of increasing the cost to seniors for the rest of it. So it's just not that simple. It takes a lot more study. So I would think that this proponent has gone through a lot of work to come up with a pro forma that would work for providing the type of care that we need in the Township of Langley and providing housing for seniors. But to just arbitrarily say, oh, now we're going to have you change your pro forma because it sounds good, I think is a little bit premature. So I can't support the amendment, but I would like to see it go to public hearing. So I will now call the question on the amendment. And the amendment fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Davis, and Councillor Long opposed. So we're back to the main motion, and Councillor Whitmarsh on the main motion.
2 things that I wanted to mention or ask a question about. On page 2 of the package that was sent to us, number 7A, it says that there'd be the confirmation that an elementary school site must be secured in advance of this unless the development is for adults age 55 plus, which of course is the intention of this building. How do we ensure that it's 55 plus, and how in terms of time frame? Is there a time frame that this has to be? What if this was to 10 years down the road change and it was no longer that, and now we haven't secured an elementary school? I'm just wondering the process of the time period in which we have to sort of commit to and guarantee that it's 55 plus in regards to this issue of the elementary school site.
Mr. Steffi?
Thank you, Your Worship. I draw Council's attention to prerequisite number 8, which discusses the need for an execution of a housing agreement. That agreement is something that is registered at the Land Titles Office, similar to a covenant, and runs with the property for that particular building in perpetuity. That means that the building cannot be used for anything other than what's specified in the agreement. It has to be, as I said, registered on title, and it requires adult orientation. 55 plus is the minimum age, or those requiring assistance in some way in terms of support, hospice, palliative care, etc., as mentioned in prerequisite number 8.
Okay, so does that include all rental units and units for purchase? And does it include all residents in the unit, or is it just the owner or the primary renter? Like, can someone 55 have family members younger than that living with them, that sort of thing?
Yes, it affects the entire building, Your Worship, and it affects all of the entire building itself, the 3 components of it. So even the apartments, the strata apartment units have to be 55 plus. And in terms of whether family members can reside in the same unit, I think they can. The ownership has to be by people that are 55 plus.
Okay, so a second question, separate from that, thank you for that. On the parking requirements, just wanted to make sure I understand this. When I read through it, it seemed to indicate that for apartments that were 70 meters square or larger, that we would have 1 parking stall for each unit. And then for those apartments that were less than 70 meters square, there would be 1 parking stall for every 4 units. I'm just wondering, it seems like a big difference between 70 meters square. If you were 69 meters square and you had 4 of them, you'd only need 1 parking spot for 4 based on this. I'm just wondering what the rationale is for it seemingly a big difference between those that are 70 meter and those that are a bit larger than 70 meters in terms of parking requirements.
Thank you, Your Worship. It might appear as if it's an arbitrary number. However, it's actually based on what is typically built in terms of a square footage of an apartment unit and who occupies them. In the case of apartment units less than 70 square meters in size, it is typically either a single person or people who are seniors, elderly, that do not generate that much traffic or that much trips per unit, and as such the requirements in the zoning bylaw are 1 for every 4 units.
So when we average out the parking across the building, what does it work out to for parking stalls per unit? I sort of looked at a number of different numbers, and I wondered if that was a 0.75, and I'm not sure if that's what was meant by that.
Just quickly doing the numbers, Your Worship, we have 196 units proposed and a total of 128 parking stalls, so it works out to about 0.7 per unit on average.
Okay, 128. Says on the table above, does it not say 186 spaces required? Am I reading that incorrectly?
Your Worship, that is correct, but that's the requirement of the bylaw. What is being sought and staff supports is a variance that would allow the construction, the installation of 128 parking stalls as opposed to 186. So the 186 is what is the requirement of the zoning bylaw without any variances.
Okay, and that is based on the clientele that would be renting or purchasing these units, that there'd be less cars in a unit like this.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Richter.
Yes, under the executive summary, it says the rezoning will facilitate the development of a seniors-oriented and high-density residential community consisting of 7 buildings in 3 phases. So of those 7 buildings, are all 7 of them going to be 20-story towers or just 4?
Mr. Seffi.
Your Worship, at this point, the The exact height of the future buildings is not known. The proponents are proceeding with one building at this point. They have some concepts that show conceptually what the rest of the site is going to look like, and the zoning bylaws is, as I said earlier, permissive of future 20-story, up to 20-story. That's what the community plan calls for, up to 20 stories, but they could be less.
Okay, and will all the other buildings be 55 plus as well?
And also, Your Worship, the restrictions that are applicable to this particular building may or may not be replicated in the future.
So the zoning that we're being asked to approve tonight, does this cover the 7 buildings or just the 1 building?
The zoning is for the entire site. The development permit relates to the building.
Okay, so we may or may not have seniors housing of 20 stories in the future, depending on what they come back with. Seems to me there's a lot of unknowns on this. The other question that I had is the tree protection part. It says that there are 97 significant trees on the subject site and none are suitable for retention. I find that hard to believe. If we're building up, isn't part of building up to protect trees?
Your Worship, the footprint of the building, as can be seen on this slide here, Phase 1, Building 1A, based on the requirements of providing a care facility and the need for common areas being on the same floor as the units, has meant that the footprint has to be what you see there on the screen. And as such, it is, and based on the need for access provisions and the parkade and the servicing corridors, etc., it means that the trees are not able to be retained. However, based on the bylaw requirements, there will be a number of trees replaced or replanted.
Yeah, but they're just going to be little trees.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no further discussion, so I'll now call the question on, what was it? Oh, F1. And carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Okay, move on. Move on to bylaws for final adoption, and I1 is 2018 Revenue Anticipation Borrowing Bylaw 5329. Councillor Whitmarsh moves. Councillor Fox seconds. Discussion on I1. Seeing none, call the question. And that carries unanimously. Move on to I2, and that's Highway Closure, Dedication, Removal, and Disposal, Bylaw 5183. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Long, second by Councillor Arneson. Discussion? Seeing none. Oops, there's one just popped up. Councillor Davis.
Question maybe through the staff. Is there any application for that piece of property for a cell tower in progress that we know of, or no? Or we wouldn't be disposing of it?
We're not aware of any application, no.
No, so there's nothing that has come to council. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion. I'll now call a question. Carries unanimously. Move on to the Mayor and Council report. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Nice to be back at the council table after a really nice time off. I hope everyone enjoyed the Christmas season, had time with family and friends, and welcome back to all of my council colleagues. A couple events were attended over the past few weeks, like curling, the BC Junior Curling Championships, where Acting Mayor Fox attended the banquet dinner on Sunday, December 17th, and I was able to attend the opening ceremonies on Monday, December the 18th. 16 teams achieved a major accomplishment in the sport of curling by qualifying for a provincial championship. They have worked very hard to get there, and we congratulate all of the teams that showed up. So they're from all over BC, and it was great to see them. Acting Mayor Fox also attended the Provincial Wheelchair Curling Championships opening ceremony on Friday, July the 12th. Township Council was invited to tour the Hearthstone residence in Abbotsford on Monday, January 8th, and I was there along with Councillor Arneson, Councillor Qualley, and Councillor Richter. And a couple of things about Hearthstone Residence. Number one, it won an award with the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board Commercial Building Awards for the design. And number two, it's fitting a need in the city of Abbotsford, where it's supportive housing to assist people in moving from either on the street or into situations where they don't have permanent housing, to move into a place like this, get settled, and be able to move on to some permanent housing. It's only been in operation for 8 months. And fairly new. I asked them about the successes. One of the successes, they already had somebody move on and get some permanent housing, get a job. Very supportive for people in need. Interesting thing, we hear it all over the Lower Mainland when these facilities go in. There's a lot of people that are opposed and have a lot of concerns, and rightfully so. It was interesting to note that the area around this place actually improved. They really take ownership in their facility and in their neighborhood, and it was quite an eye-opener for me. We really appreciate the City of Abbotsford staff, and Mayor Braun attended also to answer our questions for the process that they went through. And it took many years to get to this point. And I really do appreciate them taking time from their busy schedules to come and assist us with answering our questions and giving us a tour and what they're doing to help the issue of homelessness, which is certainly not abating in the Metro Vancouver area. The staff at Hearthstone are committed for the wonderful work, and we really thank them for facilitating the tour and responding to our questions as well. And also, pass on our appreciation to Chuck, one of the residents who had been homeless for about 3.5 years. And he opened up his room, and we could go in and speak to him regarding his situation. He was very open, very proud of where he lives, and very grateful for the assistance that he was getting. And it was great to see. It's one thing to talk about homelessness, and it's a number. But when you actually talk to people who are affected by it and who are benefiting from it, it certainly was good to see. And he's a senior, his children in the area, and just was able to get some help in his housing. So again, it was one of the major things. And I appreciate the members of council that could come out, and I know we'll be hearing more about this sort of thing. But it's one thing to talk about it. It was another thing to actually get out there, visit the place, talk to the people that live there, talk to the people that operate it, and find out what their challenges are and what their successes are. So. And that's basically my mayor's report. We took a bit of a nice break in the system. So I would like to open up to council members and anybody else who would like to speak about this visit or anything else. Councillor Richter.
Well, two of the lessons I think that came out from the discussions we had at Hearthstone was, number one, when they entered into the agreement with the provincial government to have that facility built, they had an agreement that the residents would be from Abbotsford, so it would be homeless in Abbotsford, and I think we should take that lesson from them. The second lesson is they started right from the get-go with a good neighbor committee and a good neighbor policy in order to help introduce the facility to the neighbors and the community around it, and that's been, from everything they've said, a very successful undertaking, and I think we should follow that as well.
I think the one, the Quality Inn, that's what they're proposing also, and I think BC Housing has learned from these other ones that those are what helps with the successes, and so certainly that's on the planning for that one. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. It was nice to be able to visit the facility and see the organization that's running it. What struck me most, I thought that was very helpful, is the degree to which, prior to opening up and during the process, when there were concerns about, what the nature of the impact would be on the community, that there was a concerted effort to have dialogue with the existing community to try and assuage some of their concerns. But even more importantly was the idea that going forward there was a real responsiveness to acting together with that community to make sure that if there were any issues that began to arise, that they were quickly addressed, because that was one of the concerns, and certainly we've heard some here, but I think really there were very good examples, and I would love to see some of them come to speak to us regarding our own project here, because I think there's nothing like listening to a success story for people to gain a broader understanding about why it would be positive for the conditions that frankly we already have in the township of Langley, and we need to work towards addressing. So it was a very valuable trip, and I also thank other staff for coming, and just, you know, the idea that we were able to talk really openly about their experience there was very helpful.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Okay, so we'll move on. And next item is other business. And so I'll put Councillor Davis on, who has an item of other business. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. First, can I change a couple words?
Sure. It hasn't been moved yet, so
instead of liabilities, can I put legalities?
Legalities?
The legalities of relocation and extension of the stream.
Legalities, yeah.
Okay, and on the bottom,
yeah,
if I could just add, when I gave this, it was all here, and I just wonder, because I had lots of other information here, I just wonder if they'd maybe missed this part, but the liabilities of relocation of the storm water pipe from private to public property if this is an extension of the stream.
If this is extension. Okay.
So move.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Richter. And Councillor Davis, did you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I'd like to. I think there's an awful lot of confusion, at least on my with me. I'm not the only one. We just received a letter from Environmental West Consultants stating that the storm sewer realignment and the subject of which is based on misunderstanding and all that sort. And themselves, they put down the storm sewer realignment when I couldn't get an answer whether it was a stream or a storm sewer. I'd like this to go. I don't want to stop the project, but I want to do it right. I don't want the township to be liable, and I want to know who is responsible in the future for this. The so-called storm sewer alignment or the right-of-way has not only gone from one side of the property to the other side of where they're building the building, it's gone down the property, up the west side, and all the way along back up to the existing spot. So I would assume it could be 2 or possibly 3 times the length. So we've doing our best to make it really hard for any fisheries. Also, we all as councillors received a letter from West Coast Environmental Law, and I feel that letter and a letter from Robert W. Armstrong that comments on the West Creek should also go to a lawyer for legal opinions, for a legal opinion. And like I say, I don't want to stop the building, but I want to do this right. And I don't want to, in 10 years, 5 years, 15 years down the road, have the township liable for this to move. Now it's on our property, and are we going to be bearing the cost of that? So it's a legal thing for me, anyhow. So that's what I'd like that to. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Well, I won't be supporting the motion the way the motion is. I think the letter we received from Ian White is very succinct in its context, and it states pretty clearly, I think, at the council meetings, township staff provided a clear and correct information regarding the issue. However, conflicting information from outside sources has led to confusion. I couldn't agree more. Number one, the township isn't going to be liable for anything in this regard because it's all the liability is held by, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sefi, by Mr. Ian White, P.AG. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the township has no liability here, number one. Then number two, the project's finished. It's done. It's done. and it's working the way the old pipe worked, to my understanding, in talking to these people. And it's a flow. Of significant note is the vast majority of the existing pipe, where it actually goes under Highway Number 1 and was put in 1965, I think, when Highway Number 1 was actually built. And so it flows south to north underneath Highway Number 1 and across this particular piece of property. It was realigned. I feel comfortable, and I have talked personally with Mr. White, that he is willing to accept any liability because that's his professional status. And that's why the township, when we do projects of any nature, have professional engineers, professional agrologists, professional individuals put their name to it, because then it's their responsibility. At the end of the day, they are liable. So I'm not sure that we're going to gain anything. Mr. White has said, I'm more than willing to come to a council meeting to present the relevant information, including perspectives of the Fisheries Act, the Water Sustainability Act, and to answer any questions that council may have. I would have to suggest that Mr. White is the preeminent environmental consultant in the Lower Mainland at this point in time, and I have the utmost respect for his professionalism and his professional ability to manage this particular project and put his name to it and accept all liability.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is a vexing situation, I would say. I understand from previous council discussion and also presentations, we've had subsequent correspondence, which apparently creates this conflicting viewpoint, which apparently has not, at least from my perspective, been effectively resolved at this point. I wonder whether or not I'm going to support this, but I would like to actually add, well, I probably can't do it now, an amendment. I know I'm just speaking to the request for a legal opinion, but I think that the question that was raised regarding Section 11 of the Water Sustainability Act has not actually been addressed. And I'm wondering, instead of calling this some kind of error or who would be at fault, it's maybe a potential case of misalignment of decisions because we have different orders of government who are weighing in on this. And I do appreciate the fact that the Township of Langley, through our skilled professionals, do rely on consultants. But when I'm faced as a councillor with making a decision about an area that's very environmentally sensitive and frankly has been, rather because of the process of industrialization, which is acceptable, we agreed to that. Certain things have happened, but I'm not willing just to say, without any further recourse, is there some new stipulation that has not been addressed at this point through the Sustainable Water Act? And if it's the case that it is a requirement, I would think that due diligence would require that we find out that it is, because it's called a specific thing. It's called a change approval. And if I saw a solicitor who was skilled in this area, not necessarily, with all due respect, somebody who is a consultant for the proponent, saying that they feel that this has been met, then I would feel more comfortable. But until such time as I see that somebody who is working regularly in this area is willing to say that they think that this condition has been met, then I would like a secondary opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the intent of the motion is. I mean, I appreciate it's asking for a legal opinion. I'm not sure that that this necessarily is a legal issue. I feel quite comfortable with where things are at, but I do appreciate that there is a fair bit of confusion on this topic, and I'm not sure what would be helpful to clarify the confusion. There's wide variety of opinions and perspectives on this. I can see certainly from the letter we received from Mr. White that he's certainly prepared to come and talk to us about the perspectives of the Fishery Act and the Water Sustainability Act, to answer any questions we might have, maybe to clarify or to help to dissipate some of the confusion we have. It seems to me that regardless, there will be differing opinions of what should have happened or should be done, but I'm not sure I see it as a legal issue, and so I guess I'm not at this point. I'm not prepared to support the need to get another legal opinion, but I am supportive of having some kind of clarification, presentation, or time, and maybe having Mr. White is part of that. I'm not sure, but something to help clear up some of the confusion I am certainly supportive of, but I don't see this as a legal issue at this point for the township.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
I support the idea of a legal opinion because I think Councillor Davis is quite correct. Is there any exposure that the township is facing as a result of having taken this decision? And I recall that we got a letter from the West Coast Environmental Group, the law group, a while back. Councillor Davis, do you have a copy of that letter? Can you read what their recommendations were?
If you could just hold that and just finish your comments, and Councillor Davis can be put on the speaker's list.
If we've got the West Coast Environmental Group giving us recommendations, and we've got the consultant for the proponent giving us his or her opinion, at what point do we ask for clarification between the two, because the two are clearly at odds? And I think that we need to get an opinion from our legal counsel respecting what the township's liabilities are. So I agree with Councillor Davis's motion. And if Councillor Davis could read what the West Coast Law Group wrote.
Yep, he's on the speaker's list. You can read it then. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. I tend to agree with what Councillor Whitmarsh is saying. I do have a question, though, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Sefi. The letter we received from Enviro West, is that, it's addressed to you. So did we ask for that letter clarifying, or was that letter sent from the proponent, or how did this evolve?
Your Worship, as I recall, the December 11th meeting, Council passed a resolution requesting more information from the proponents, and this is part of that.
So Mr. White is a consultant that we would use here in the municipality.
Mr. White is, in this particular case, the applicant's consulting engineer, consulting professional, qualified professional, but he has done work for the Township of Langley as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's why I've seen the information there, his name before. So, and did I hear Councillor Fox say that the work is 100% complete?
Your Worship, I don't know about 100%, but it certainly has substantially completed. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Well, Your Worship, I hope we're not going to discuss it much more tonight, because it seems that there is a lot of confusion. I don't think I can feel comfortable, as someone has said, because of all of the different opinions, as he says and he says. So it's there are two opposing opinions, apparently, about this sewer pipe or stream or whatever. So I'd be happy to make sure that council is comfortable with where it's going and what it's been doing, that it appreciates the advice that's come from different consultants, from staff, from Fisheries and Water Sustainability Act, etc. So I would say in any situation, if there's someone on council that requires some kind of confirmation that we're doing the right thing, or a double check, why not allow that? So I would be supportive of that and trying to get at least a final answer on this issue, because I think this is about the fourth meeting that we've had this discussion, and none of us are experts, and there's different opinions out there. So let's get the facts on the table, and let's get this thing put to bed. And so if that requires another opinion, as has been requested by council and now seconded as a motion we're discussing, so be it.
Thank you.
But let's not discuss it anymore tonight, because we don't have those answers.
Well, there's still a few more who want to speak. Councillor Davis?
Sorry, I just want to touch on, just because it's finished doesn't mean it's right. I just wanted to add that up. What's brought this on, this hasn't really come from outsiders. This has come from within me. I was at a meeting, I guess 4 meetings ago, and I got very, very confused. I was very confused on, was this a stream, or was this a Stewart, or was this a pipe? What's the technical term? Stormwater pipe. And I don't know. I couldn't get that straight. I couldn't get it. So that's why I'm here today, and that's why I'm pushing this. And I don't know I don't know, like, coming from outside. This is coming from me, and I want it. Like I say, I want to do this right. And we've made it. It's 2 or 3 times longer now. And but anyhow, this is what the recommendations were with West Coast. They gave this under the Provincial Water Sustainable Act 11. Changes in a stream may only be made in accordance with the terms and conditions of a change, approval, regulations, authorization, or order. We are not aware that the WSA, Water Sustainable Act, authorization has been issued by the province. Therefore, we recommend that no alteration to the stream be made unless and until BD Development obtains a permit under Section 11 of the WSA. The other recommendation is the Township of Langley should examine options to restore West Creek and its tributaries along the entire length of the stream. This is crucial because the West Creek watershed provides important habitat for populations of chum, coho, and other species. It was piped back when, I think it was in the 60s, underneath Highway 1. But that was you might say that's like 50, 60 years ago. And that was the law of the time. Moving this now, we did this under the law of 30 years ago. And that's the answer I've got, that, well, it's done with DFO and their 30-year rules. And they're changing the rules as we speak. I think not too long they should be. Anyhow, I just wanted to clarify one more thing here. Let's do this right. We're doing a lot of things to make environment right. We've made it 3 times longer, and we've put in 1, 2, 3 bends and all that sort of stuff. And anyhow, and like I said, I don't want to stop the project. Let's build the building, but let's do it right so that the Township of Langley does not get into trouble down the road legally. Over.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
So who requested this legal opinion from West Coast Law? So someone at this table must have requested it because it must have come in response to something. West Coast Law doesn't use their lawyers and just freely hand out opinions.
That's okay.
No?
It's
it does matter because
you can just make
because
a point,
in fact what we're saying is just because a lawyer wrote, and even that particular lawyer wrote in a very speculative manner with no concrete evidence that actually Section 11 had been violated, yet we've got a letter from Mr. White who's saying, I'd be pleased to attend to present relevant information, including perspectives from the Water Sustainability Act. So he's obviously dealt with the Water Sustainability Act, whereas this lawyer is saying, well, maybe you should put it on hold because maybe there might have been a violation. So they haven't really done any investigative work, whereas in the case we're saying, well, Mr. White, your work isn't satisfactory because some fellow from West Coast Environment wrote a speculative letter. So the bottom line is I'm not going to take the West Coast Environment lawyer's word for it just based on the fact that he said, well, maybe there's something wrong here. So he either knows or he doesn't know. He's a lawyer. They don't work on speculation.
if you just want to answer that question, but you've had two turns, so just answer the question.
Okay, it was Erica Strott, and it says, to whom it may concern. So I don't know if she's a concerned citizen or whatever, but who asked
fair enough.
Environmental West to come to the table tonight?
Fair enough.
With
Yes,
this?
you answered the question.
We
Thank
did.
you. Yeah,
We did.
Yeah, we did as council. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
you got me there.
No. So, no further discussion. Okay, so I'm just going to put in my opinion. I've heard some great information here. When this initially came to this table, it was voted on and approved. I know for some there may be some confusion. My opinion was this was a storm sewer, and I had no problem making that decision based on the information that I had, and I'm still confident on that decision. But going back and saying we need a legal opinion, I could see getting a legal opinion if we're being taken to court by someone because of something. But to go for a legal opinion on a decision that's already made, great to get a legal opinion to help us make decisions. But the information I received was very clear to me that this was a storm sewer, but everybody has an opinion. So I am not going to support this. I think we have enough information. We've heard from our own staff and that this is a storm sewer, and I'm pretty content with that, so I won't be supporting it. So I'll call the question on M1. Is there an amendment? No, there's no amendment. No. And the motion fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow opposed. Is there any other business? Councillor Richter?
Yes, we released from in camera on December 11th a number of items, and that's December 11th, and we're now at January 15th already. So I was wondering, these of course are on the agenda. I was wondering if we could quickly go through some of them with staff to see what the status is. So one of the things is the decision to build a new museum in Fort Langley, and we're going to take that to public information session. And I'm just wondering through you to staff, has a date been set for an open house in Fort Langley so that people can be aware of it?
Mr. Backen, I know you're looking around for staff. Is there somebody we can get back to? Oh, there's Mr. Tulamello.
February 8th.
Okay.
February 8th. So it's just one night?
Just one afternoon and night.
Okay, and where will it be?
At St. Andrew's Church.
Okay.
In Fort Langley on Glover Road.
All right. And what about the Haldy House application?
So I have consulted with Mountain First Nation, and they are happy to make that information public. And a media release will be going out tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the Aldergrove Community Plan update, staff did give us a presentation, which we received, and I'm just wondering if the gist of that presentation can be shared with the public relative to what could be or not happening in Aldergrove.
Backen or Mr. Seffi?
Subject to council's direction, Your Worship, yes. The gist of it, yeah.
Okay, so we can get that in the memo.
Well, can we not tell people tonight? I'm sure they're interested.
Well, this is a presentation. I don't know if we're going to hear the whole presentation tonight. That we're just released a motion that we received a presentation by staff regarding the Aldergrove Plan update. I'm sure that'll come out in due course. Mr. Seffi, can you comment on that?
Yes, Your Worship. Are you expecting something this evening, or?
Not a
future?
full-blown presentation. That's not on the agenda. I think we're just releasing this information. Maybe Mr. Backen can help guide us through this.
I think it's about the context. This was in regards to the history of the Aldergrove Plan and its boundaries and how they've developed and morphed over time in terms of from the original setting of the boundaries, given the agricultural land reserve component in terms of how it was set up, to the plan that was constructed thereafter that was partially in the ALR. To modifications of that historically, to a process where we went through with the Agricultural Land Commission to have a memorandum of understanding in terms of how to proceed, then ultimately to an application where there was an attempt to, with their concurrence, to find the new boundaries, hopefully harmoniously, and that was ultimately denied. So that's led to a request for a reconsideration of that, or reasons for their decision, and especially in light of the fact that we'd worked on the plan together, and that discussion and dialogue continues as it has for about 20 years now.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Summarization.
item L4, we authorize staff to dispose of 2 properties in Aldergrove. When are we expecting the disposal to be completed by?
Your worship, it's correct. There was the authorization to proceed to dispose. It'll be dependent upon market conditions and whatnot. It was referenced, it's been advertised now, and we're in the process of actually trying to determine what our next steps will be. This is in the area of the present Aldergrove Arena.
Okay. And item L5, a memo to council on the Statewood Properties project. When will this memo be available, and is it open to the public as well?
Your worship, staff is working on finalizing the memo. It should be sometime this week, hopefully on council distribution on Thursday, and it will be a public memo.
Okay. And the terms of reference for the investigation into the respectful workplace policy. I understand we've retained legal counsel. Has legal counsel accepted? Are those terms of reference available to the public? When will the investigation start, and how much will it cost?
Yes, Your Worship, the terms of reference are available to the public. I guess through the clerk's office would probably be the best place to start with obtaining them. The process is set to start later this month, and the cost at this point is on a per hour basis. It will depend upon how much time is taken to the interview process and the response to that. We expect it to be in the thousands of dollars, but do not know, I guess, beyond that how many it will be, because it depends very much on where the process takes us.
And do we know how long so we don't know how long the investigation, so what is the per hour cost?
I believe it was, because of the hours quoted, I think it was around 375.
Plus taxes, right? And
Plus taxes and disbursements, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other business? Motion to terminate? Termination. And second by, Councillor Sparrow seconds the motion to terminate. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll take a very short break, and then we'll be going into the public hearing.